Greetings, everyone, and welcome back. We are now, if you were looking at this as an athletic event, a football game or something, we are coming out of the tunnel for the second half, right? You can picture your helmets on and running out onto the field. And it's hard to believe, right? It shouldn't be. I've been doing this for a long time, and these semesters just they just fly by. They just fly by. Maybe not for you. Maybe not for you guys. If you had to list, if you had to list 3 or 4 ongoing phenomena fostering international or national change, what would you come up with? I mean, if you had to make a list of things that are just, really influencing, change. I can't think of another way to say it. It could be social media, the pandemic, pandemics. In this section we're going to be heading into now, it kind of all boils down to, in the era we're going to look at, to 3, and it's a military conqueror, it's a religious figure, and a product. And I speak of Alexander the Great, Buddha, and silk. Yes, silk. Turn to page 262, 263, and I will get up this week's objectives and talk about the heads up terms, and we will get going. Let's get that old trusty side panel up there. There you go. So in this chapter, chapter 6, we want to describe Hellenism is going to be a big watchword, right? You guys will, by the time we get to the review quiz and the test, anyone misses that, I'm probably not going to shed any tears about that. I'm going to be talking about it a lot in this particular chapter. And by the way, the name of this chapter, The Shrinking of the Afro-Eurasian World. And we want to describe Hellenism, right? We want to describe that and explain its impact across Afro-Eurasia. And we want to analyze the political changes that shaped Central and South Asia in the aftermath of Alexander's incursion into the region, or on the region. And I want to evaluate the forces that influenced the spread of Buddhism in this period. And then lastly, trace the early roots of the Silk Roads and assess their importance in connecting Afro-Eurasia. Some of the major heads-up terms here that we're going to be dwelling on to some extent. The first one would be Hellenism, right? Hellenism, this is a uniform culture that stressed the common identity of all who embraced Greek ways. And this culture emphasized the common denominators of language, style, and politics, to which anyone anywhere in the Afro-Eurasian world could have access. Koine Greek, the common Greek dialect, and this becomes the international language across the regions, influenced by Hellenism, and facilitates trade of goods and ideas. Cosmopolitans, this means citizen of the world, okay, as opposed to a city-state, which we've looked at. And this term refers particularly to inhabitants of large multi-ethnic cities that were nodes or cones of exchange in the Hellenistic world. And I see I'm being yelled at on here, and I misspelled that here, so Get that off of there. Here we go. The Mauryan Empire, 321 to 184 BC. This is the first large-scale empire in South Asia, right? We've seen large-scale empires elsewhere thus far, but not in South Asia. Stretches from the Indus in the west to the mouth of the Ganges in the east, and nearly to the southern tip of the Indian subcontinent. Begun by Chandragupta Maurya, and in the aftermath of Alexander's time in India, and it actually gets expanded to its greatest extent by his grandson Asoka. Bactria, 250 to 50 BC. It's a Hellenistic kingdom in the Gandhara region, which is today modern Pakistan, and that became an independent state around 200 BC, blending Indian and Greek population, and also Greek ideas as well. Mahayana Buddhism, otherwise called the Great Vehicle Buddhism, and accessible form of Buddhism that spreads along the Silk Roads. You need to come up with me there. Come on. Comes up along the Silk Roads and includes in its theology a divine Buddha, as well as bodhisattvas. Well, the bodhisattvas in Mahayana Buddhism, these were enlightened beings who had achieved nirvana, but they remained in this world to help others reach it. Silk Roads, more than 5,000 miles of trade routes linking China, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean, and they were named, for the silk, right? Obvious, right? Silk was, as I say here, famously traded along their land and sea routes. Although the ideas, people, and many other high-value commodities also moved along the lengths of these roads. Your caravan cities are like the two major ones would be Petra and Palmyra, that were located along the land routes of the Silk Roads, and they serve as hubs of commerce and cultural exchange between travelers and merchants participating in long distance trade. So, after Alexander's military conquests over a wide and vast expanse of the East, Hellenistic culture was spread, and Buddhism speaks via the vehicle of the Mauryan Empire, and it begins in South Asia and then goes beyond that. So, and then you have the movement of commodities such as spices, metals, and of course silks that move overland and by the seas too. And again, ideas are moved too as these different cultures merge. Ideas are moved, especially Buddhism and Hellenism, across Afro-Eurasia. So there you have that. Let's get into our instruction for the day. And at this juncture, you should be at page 262, 263. And there we go. Shrinking the Afro-Eurasian worlds. Alexander, he had the armed campaigns of the Macedonians led by Alexander the Great, 356 to 323 BC, began a drive for empire from the west that basically connects the distant regions and spreads a Hellenistic culture throughout the conquered lands. And we're going to stay on this for a little while. Map 6.1 probably would be helpful and appropriate to turn there at this juncture. Under Alexander's predecessors, especially his father, Philip II, Macedonia had become a large ethnic and territorial state. And again, you can take a look at map 6.1. Check some of that out. Look at the captions. And Alexander, he dies in Babylon in 323. Right, just 33. I think he's not even 33. I think he's the textbooks, I guess, say he was 33. I don't think he made even his 33rd birthday. Okay. He conquered lands, fragmented, and his generals took over the regions. Competition in war remained an unceasing fact of life, but the wars among the kingdoms of Alexander's successors were broader in scope and more complex in organization than ever before. So since the successor kingdoms were nearly equal in strength and employed the same advanced military technology, however, the near constant state of war between the new kings never achieved much. So after battles that killed tens of thousands and severely injured and wounded hundreds of thousands more, the three major kingdoms, and even the minor ones, remained largely unchanged. Hellenistic culture, the unification of large blocks of territory under Alexander's successors helped spread a common Hellenistic culture. So following the existing commercial networks, Hellenism was a shared Greek culture that extended across the entire Mediterranean basin. And you can stop and look at your map on 6.1 and even into Southwest Asia. You have a common language with all of this, the core element of Hellenism, a common language known as Koine or Common Greek. And what it does is it replaces the city-states, numerous dialects with an everyday form that people anywhere could understand. So Koine Greek quickly becomes the international language, right, of its day. People in Egypt, Judea, Syria, Sicily, and you can see the large expanse of this territory on your map, who all had distinct languages, right, and cultures could now communicate more easily with one another and enjoy the same dramatic comedies and new forms of art and sculpture. There is on page 273, one of the old Greek style amphitheaters, which, the Greek culture influences Roman culture. In Syracuse, you could see, one of these Greek style amphitheaters. Again, ideas, right? Ideas are moving. Greek ideas are moving throughout the empire, right? The Hellenistic culture. art now needed to appeal to a broader audience. You have a new political style of distant, almost godlike kings that develop. Rulers are taking on personality that sets them apart from regular regular citizens. And then, of course, you have your philosophy and religion. Plantation slavery and money-based economies. Sad chapter, right, in human history that this stuff goes on. Ironically, or philosophical and religious innovations focused on the self were accompanied by the rise of plantation slavery, the ultimate devaluing of the individual, right, and as an engine of the Hellenistic economy. Adaptation and resistance to Hellenistic culture. Right, yeah, not every community succumbed to the allures of Hellenism. The Jews in Judea, being one of them, offered a striking case of resistance and accommodation to its universalizing forces, while some among the Jewish ruling elite began to adopt Greek ways. They were wearing Greek clothing to participate in the gymnasium with its cult of male nudity, to produce images of gods as art. Now, others rejected this, right? So those who spurned assimilation rebelled against the common elements of Hellenism, its language, its music, its gymnasia, the nudity, public art, and secularism. So as being deeply immoral and threatening their beliefs. The conservative Roman senator, Cato the elder, 249 BC to 149, or 234 BC, I think it was, to 149 BC. He struggled, right? He struggled with the tensions of that Hellenism introduced to traditional Roman ways. Although he was, Cato was devoted to the Roman past, the Latin language, and the ideal of the small-scale Roman peasant farmer and their families. Even Cato embraced many Hellenistic influences. He wrote a standard manual for the new economy of slave plantation agriculture. He invested in shipping and trading. He learned Greek rhetoric, both speaking and writing the language. And he also added the genre of history to Latin literature. Cato, too, blended an extreme devotion to Roman tradition with these bold Hellenistic innovations in most aspects of daily life. Carthage, right? Carthage, although well integrated into the Mediterranean economy, Carthage welcomed the increased communication and exchange that Hellenism facilitated. And again, map 6.1, just across the Mediterranean in North Africa, you could see Carthage. The Carthaginian merchants traded with other Phoenician colonies in the Western Mediterranean, with the towns of the Etruscans and Romans in Italy. The Etruscans, your first people group, known people group in Italy, with the Greek trading city of Massilia, which is modern day Marseille in southern France. And they did this with, merged it with Athens in the Eastern Mediterranean. Okay. I know I can't move that because I need another slide. And we are going to go to, let's see, there we go. Converging influence in Central and in South Asia. Chandragupta in the Mauryan Empire. Alexander's brief occupation in India paves the way for one of the largest empires in South Asian history, the Mauryan Empire. Historically, a conglomerate of warring states. Chandragupta Maurya ended this via a series of skillful military expeditions. He leads the northern Indian Mauryan Empire, 321 to 184 BC. Megasthenes observed this while at the Mauryan court, and he wrote the Indica, referencing the well-ordered and stratified society that was emerging. People respected their boundaries in the Mauryan Empire. Society was integrated with roads to connect cities and foster trade and troop movement. The regime of his son, Chandragupta's son, Asoka, his rule was based on the premise of Dhamma. This was a form of Hindu Sanskrit, which we took a look at earlier. The meaning of Dhamma, tolerance of others, right? Tolerance of others and obedience to the natural order of things. And it was to apply to everyone, including those at the top of the hierarchy, right? Including your Brahmins. The Greek influence in Central Asia, right? The Hellenistic influence. Greek influences shaped politics and culture in the regimes that succeeded direct Greek control in Central Asia. Do my good deed here and cap that, right? Eat all my make sure I eat all my vegetables here with this. Garrison towns founded by Alexander and his successor Seleucus remained and grew into these Hellenistic centers. Koine Greek was the official language, and this goes and serves as a big influence. Let's see, back that up and take my cap off. This influences the more pronounced after effects, I guess, even after Seleucus. So the Hellenistic kingdom of Bactria breaks away. Eventually, they break away from Seleucus, the Seleucids, Seleucus's followers around 200 BC to establish a pretty strong state that included the Gandhara region in what would today be modern Pakistan. The transformation of Buddha. India as a spiritual crossroad. Land and sea routes began to converge in India. India becomes like a little terminal. It becomes a melting pot of ideas and institutions. So South Asian people began to blend their local religions with Hellenism, and that ends up transforming Buddhism. India becomes a spiritual crossroad as a result. The Kushans, and we'll dwell on them a little bit later, but the Kushans, they were horse riding people, and they were influential on the Buddhists as well. Well, this new Buddhism, the Mahayana school, I mentioned that earlier. This is the mixing of new ways, nomadic, Hellenistic, Mesopotamian, and Persian with traditional Buddhism. And this produces as I say here, kind of a religious synthesis. Mahayana, meaning the great vehicle, Mahayana Buddhism, and the Bodhisattvas. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Bodhisattvas, and just to say that the Buddhist world is very abstract, right? The abstract view of nirvana, and it kind of gives way to this Mahayana Buddhism vision that the Bodhisattvas envision, and the Bodhisattvas were looked at as enlightened demigods, they were ready to reach nirvana. So the universe of the afterlife of this Mahayana Buddhism presents an array of alternatives to the harsh real existence of worldly living. I would say this too, in the first 2 centuries of the religion, of the Common Era, Mahayana Buddhists resolved a kind of a centuries-long dispute over whether the Buddha was a god or just a wise human. And the consensus funneled out to, they affirmed that the Buddha was indeed a deity. And however, Mahayana Buddhism was accommodating. It offered spiritual pluralism that incorporated outside influences and positioned Indian believers as a cosmopolitan people. Okay. To get that side panel up again. Once I break out of one slide to another. Wow, this is really posing some problems for me today. Let's get out of there. Yep. Okay. This is why I like live classes so much better. You just take the briefcase in, your papers, and just get a little overhead on the screen. You don't have to worry about all this. Okay. New images of the Buddha in literature and art. Fashioned from, and you can look at page 287. Page 287, you see some of the art I'm going to talk about here. Fashioned from gray schist rock, these Buddhist sculptures from the Kushan territory. Again, I said it was modern day Pakistan and northwest region of India. Follow what is called the Gandharan style of sculpture. And the Gandharan Buddhist art shows Greek and Roman influences, whereas the Mutharan style evolved from the carved idols of South Asian folk gods and goddesses. So inspired by the Hellenistic art and religious tradition, both take these bold steps of sculpting the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas in realistic human form rather than symbolic form. And if you take a look at Greek art early on, the classical period of art, as it shifts to the Hellenistic period, you can see where even the Greek art, it starts off early on, the archaic period, the classical period, kind of stiff and symmetrical. By the time it gets to the Hellenistic period, the emphasis is on facial features and emotion. And of course, that influences the Romans a little later too. So, though Buddha wore no decorations because he had cut off all links to the world, the Bodhisattvas were addressed as princes because they were still in the world. They were still in the world, generously helping others. And what was important was bringing the symbolic world of Buddhism closer to the people. And that was, I guess, the agency of the Bodhisattvas. Okay. Let's go to all kinds of problems with this today. Let's go to my third and final screen. And let's go to the Silk Road. Okay. And take a look at the formation of the Silk Roads. And you could turn to, I think you can turn to map 6.2. Look at map 6.2. The Silk Roads, these were, caravans were on these, right? Caravans that transported many other precious commodities, such as not only silk, but incense, gemstones, and metals. Roman writers, they knew the importance of these routes for bringing silk from the east to the west. So the effects of these long distance exchanges altered the political geography of Afro-Eurasia. Egypt and Mesopotamia faded as sources of innovation and knowledge, becoming instead crossroads for people on either side of them. So these former borderlands emerge as new imperial centers, and what we now call the Middle East, right? Literally become a commercial middle ground, right, if you will, between the Mediterranean and India. There's map 6.2. Nomads and our friends, the nomads and trades. Long distance trade routes develop, from the ways of horse riding. Constant movement exposed them, even the nomads, to a greater variety of microbes and made them more immune than even the settled people. 6.2. What about these caravans? Caravan cities, spices and textiles. As the nomads moved southwestward, they produced a new kind of commercial hub, the caravan cities. And they were established at strategic locations, and often at the edges of deserts or in oasis, or at some kind of end point of major trade arteries. And these cities became places where these trading groups would assemble before beginning their arduous journeys. One of the most striking of these caravan cities was the Nabatean capital at Petra. Now, although originating in the Nabatean herders, these practices of carving shelters and cisterns for catching rainwater out of the solid stone of the forbidding landscape, the magnificent rock city of Petra, or Petros in Greek, meaning rock, was made possible by the wealth accumulated from the spice trade. Houses, shrines, tombs, and even the vast theater carved entirely from the sandstone terrain that we looked at earlier, some of those theaters, which would seat anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 spectators, reflected again those Hellenistic influences. So with Petra's decline during the Roman period, Palmyra became the most important caravan city. Some of you here might be from Eastern Pennsylvania or I guess maybe south central Pennsylvania, and be familiar with a town not too far from Harrisburg, right? Pronounced Palmyra. But that becomes the most important caravan city at the western end of the Silk Road. You can see this on map 6.2. So rich citizens of Rome relied on the Palmyran traders to procure these luxury goods for them, and they would import Chinese silks for women's clothing and incense for religious rituals, as well as gemstones, pearls, and a whole lot of other precious items. Let's see more notes there on the rise of Palmyra. China and the silk economy. People valued silk, right? So what's up with silk, right? So people valued silk as a material for clothing, a filament made by spinning the protein fibers extracted from the cocoons of silkworms. It is smooth, but it's strong. Whereas cloth, spun from hemp, flax, and trying to some other fibers, that tends to be rough. Where silk looks and feels rich. So as the long distance silk trade grew, commercial within China also expands. So as this market economy is growing, merchants organize themselves based on family lineage and occupational guilds. And you have the spread of Buddhism along the trade routes. Monks spread religion along the same trade routes that the goods traveled. Buddhism did less well spreading into the West. Probably the main barrier there early on was, and we've looked at this, Zoroastrianism, the state religion in the Persian Empire. Commerce on the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Following the expansion of the Hellenistic world, however, ships increasingly conducted these long-distance trade relationships, mastering the monsoons over time. They sailed down the Red Sea and across the Indian Ocean as they carried goods between the tip of the Arabian Peninsula and the ports of the Indian landmass. Mariners accumulated the new sailing knowledge as well in books, each called the periplus, meaning sailing around, in which sea captains recorded the landing spots and ports between their destinations, as well as their precious cargoes. And there you have that. Take a look here at what is up ahead. While I'm doing that, you can get your graphic organizer out. And I'm going to try to get up what's ahead. What's up ahead here? And let's see. Here we go. Okay, the graphic organizer, shrinking the Afro-Eurasian world. We look today at Alexander and the emergence of the Hellenistic world. Alexander comes out of Macedonia. A lot of fierce competition after Alexander's reign by his successors. Koine Greek becomes the common language of Hellenism and the Hellenistic world. Cosmopolitanism, the idea of world citizens. Jews of Hellenistic culture, some accept it, others reject it. Slave trading becomes a unfortunate reality in the Hellenistic world. Cato the Elder, right? Very conservative Roman who utilized Greek for speech and writing, but you have slave trading and slave plantations. Carthage, right? Carthage benefits through a relationship with Hellenistic culture. The shrinking the Afro-Eurasian world. You have converging influences in Central and South Asia. Chandragupta Maurya establishes the Mauryan Empire. The road system gets developed for trade and communication. Dhamma, right? Moral code for South Asia. And we looked at the transformation of Buddhism. Hellenistic influence, the depictions of Buddha on the Gandharan style of sculpture. The Mahayana Buddhism is the identity of Buddha, and the Bodhisattvas, right? The enlightened demigods. And then the shrinking of the Afro-Eurasian world includes the formation of the Silk Roads, the caravan cities, Petra, Palmyra, Petra, the rock city, the Silk Roads. See a lot of caravans on them. The new imperial centers, hubs of long distance trade, formulated lineages and occupation guilds form and ensue. Silk, right? The valuable export for China. Larger ships and navigation, education. There's also ushers in new commerce. Very influential, right? Buddhism, the Silk Roads, and Hellenistic culture, right? Told you, there were three big social phenomena, right, of the era. Up ahead, as you read, page chapter 6, and I think I have the wrong page numbers there. As you read chapter 6, that is incorrect there. So we want to get that off of there. Chapter 6, got a couple videos for you, Hellenism and the mini Silk Roads, 2 of those there. Going to include some flashcards in the mix this time. Some have informed me of the efficacy of those in studying. Review quiz, right? Review quiz coming up, and then Friday, the initial posts are due. Sunday, response posts. Monday, chapter 7, the Han Dynasty, China and Imperial Rome. We will begin that. And then, it's kind of not right down there with us right now, but peeking off into the distance. November 8th, we will have test 2, right? So be going back and looking at your quizzes and, the notes you're taking with the reading assignment, or if you're looking at the lectures, go back and, I know you guys have 5 or 4, 5, 6 other classes. I do not mean to overlook them and think that my class is the only one, right? But it is there, and some, not all, and not most, I didn't do all that well with test 1. So if you're watching this and you were one of those, you might want to take a look at a little more than you did, perhaps with the notes, right, and all the information we've been covering. So, all right. Well, I had my share of trouble with the equipment today, and no fault of the equipment. and I blame it solely on the operator here. My apologies. But at any rate, all the best to you this week. Study well, and hope you have a successful week, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.